31, 2022. I'm Ethan Lehman here in front of Lehman's Hardware. Roscoe's there, Galen's there, and Karen's back there coming. And I'll be attempting to run the Rumely. As the sign says, it's 110 years old. It probably runs as good as it did back then, except it does have some wear. Low gear is worn pretty badly. Single cylinder. The year this was made is Rumely's smallest tractor. They made two sizes bigger, I believe. And many people, when they see it run, will come up and say, I had no idea it ran. So it doesn't run unless someone starts it. I'm the one that usually starts it. It's the earlier model. It's got the large radiator. It's a 1530, which is the early model. The radiator, I believe, does not leak oil. There are other leaks on it, but that can be expected on an old tractor like this. So I will start it here and explain what I'm doing. You have to do about 8 things correctly in the correct order to get it to run. And I live in Kansas. It probably has been run for almost a year, so I came this morning and did what I had to, and I will attempt to start it now. So here's the lubricator. I just run it manually until I see all the oil lines are dripping oil into the different bearings, getting pumped into the bearing. There's 5 different lines here. There's a gooseneck that drops the oil, then it goes into the second part of the pump, which pumps out through these lines into the different bearings. You got to make sure number 3, 4, 5, and 1. So they're all getting oil. So now once it's running, this will continually run and keep pumping fresh oil to the bearings in the engine. So that's the first thing, that's ready to go. Next thing you do is you do your ignition timing. This is your timing. That advances your spark, this retards it. You always start it in the retarded position, so your flywheel does not go backwards or backfire. And then you set your throttle, use it to the second notch. Yeah, I think we'll go to the first notch this time. And your throttle is a plate that slides in the bottom of your carburetor, and this is the governor. The governor controls your throttle plate. So I have the throttle where I want it, got the oil where I want it, and you have a compression release right here, which holds your exhaust valve open for 10 inches out of the 12-inch stroke. And so you have no compression until the last 2 inches. And if you get your flywheel going, it spins very, very easily. Then it fires, and once it fires, then you put your compression on, then it runs like a regular engine. So make sure that's straight up for your compression release. Then you start it on a battery ignition. Once it's running, you can switch it to the coil up here. This coil is not working properly, so we just run it in battery all the time. So we have a regular 12-volt car battery in here. Make sure both terminals are hooked up. To check the ignition system, I have the battery hooked up and I have a 2-way switch. When this knife switch is in the front position, your magneto is hooked to your igniter. When you're in the back position, your coil is hooked to your igniter here. So I'm going to start it in the battery and run it in the battery. So I turn the switch to the back, which connects the battery. Then I close my ignition point, the points inside the cylinder. They're closed. Then I come back here and I check to make sure that I get a spark, which means that the ignition system is drawing current, and it is. So I put the knife switch back, which hooks the battery up to the igniter. So as I crank it, you'll hear a click, and that's this spool here. When it puts spring tension on here, that pulls out of the way. This spring tension pushes that igniter forward. It opens the points in your cylinder, and you get a fat blue spark, and that's what's supposed to start it. And then once it's running, I'll advance that. And you always have to change the adjustment of the carburetor according to your speed, your temperature, your load. So you're running it almost all the time with your hand on your carburetor. Carburetor has 2 sections in front, actually has 3 sections. I'm only using the front one, and I'm running gasoline in it all the time. To run kerosene, you have to get them really, really hot, and we don't get it that hot. So I'm going to pump this front chamber up with gas, and I can see what's happening by taking the plug off the top. So I'll pump, make sure this is turned off, because this is actually just a needle in a valve. And as you open that up, it pulls the needle up and lets your gas run into your carburetor. Then as your air comes through here, it takes it into the cylinder. So I've got the ignition where I want it, the oil where I want it, the carburetor, the throttle where I want it, my compression release where I want it. So now I'm going to come over here and pump my fuel up. I can see it coming up in the carburetor. And it's an overflow system. It always pumps fuel. And there's a gate in there. When it gets up the top of the gate, it runs over and returns into your tank back there. So the fuel is up. So now I'm going to open my throttle valve until I see gas running out here, and that means I get a whole slug of gas in the carburetor. And then it should be ready to start. So there it's coming. So now I got a slug, I got everything where I want it. I'll choke it here, and I'll proceed to start it.
Okay, can you choke it again?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
When we're not running it, we keep it closed because birds like to go in there.
Okay.
And of course the transmission has to be a neutral board.